Recording in progress.
Hello, dear Dharma friends. Sound okay? Yay. I'm a little bit back in the saddle yesterday. I got very confused with this thing. How lovely to see you. Well, I come home inspired. Love is the only game worth playing. And in order to be in contact with love, there has to be space for it. And there are all kinds of consolation prizes. And I, like everybody, tend to take them as real. Getting my to-do list done, or never saying no to demands or requests. Actually, I think I know the reading I'd like to share with you this morning. That song was the Avett Brothers, by the way, called The Fire. If you're not familiar with them, I highly recommend their music. I find it very inspiring. I'm kind of a groupie to a certain degree. If I could, I'd go to every one of their concerts. So this reading, many of you have heard it, of course. Martin. 20 years ago, maybe more, maybe 30 years ago, I was teaching a retreat at Cloud Mountain, a retreat center north of Portland. And there was a little slip of paper on the communication board. For those of you that have never been on a retreat, there's a board often where if you want to write a note to the teacher, you write the note, or if you need to communicate with someone else in the group, you write a note to them, so it avoids incidental conversation. But there was this little note with a message on it, a typed message. And I read it, and I was deeply moved, and I turned away, and it was like, I cannot read that. Not consciously. 25 years later, a long time later, a year or two ago now, I remembered it. And I found it in 30 seconds with Google. And it goes like this. It's short, Thomas Merton. But caution. This little quote could transform your life in ways that are beyond your imagining. So if you're not ready for that, I encourage you to turn off the sound now. It's like the news, right? This is going to be heart-wrenching. So here we go. There is a pervasive form of contemporary violence to which the idealist most easily succumbs. Activism and overwork. The rush and pressure of modern life are a form, perhaps the most common form, of its innate violence. To allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects. To want to help everyone in everything is to succumb to violence. The frenzy of our activism neutralizes our work for peace. It destroys our own inner capacity for peace. It destroys the fruitfulness of our own work because it kills the root of inner wisdom, which makes work fruitful. There is a pervasive form of contemporary violence to which the idealist most easily succumbs: activism and overwork. The rush and pressure of modern life are a form, perhaps the most common form, of its innate violence. To allow oneself to be carried away by a multitude of conflicting concerns, to surrender to too many demands, to commit oneself to too many projects, to want to help everyone in everything is to succumb to violence. The frenzy of our activism neutralizes our work for peace. It destroys our own inner capacity for peace. It destroys the fruitfulness of our own work because it kills the root of inner wisdom, which makes work fruitful. So let's sit. Let us assume our true nature. We get born into these small bodies and personalities form. Then we rush around trying to get completion in a way that's impossible. The only completion possible is remembering who we are. And who we are includes the birds and the snakes, the ocean and the galaxies. So let us come home in simplicity to breathing in and breathing out. Since the mind wants to do something, why not give it something comforting to do? Why not pick a primary training object that actually exists only in the present moment? And the breath is as natural as the tides or the seasons. It comes into being. It exists and then it vanishes. And of course, along with the breath, along with being human, come thoughts. And let's not make thoughts a problem. They too sing the same song. Impermanence. They come into being. They disappear. But the Buddha made this remarkable, I think the biggest discovery ever. It's that mindfulness, that which knows, is not the body. It's not the contents of mind. It is that which we are. And so from the very start, we practice ahimsa, nonviolence, not even violent to thoughts. I aspire to love and accept myself, this that I find, exactly as it is, in successive moments of consciousness. What a relief. And each breath really does seem to have a beginning, doesn't it? The breath is part of a living body. And we can expand our home base. What we call our primary training object, to include the entirety of the body. We could notice the aliveness which is hands. The aliveness which is the pressure of the buttocks against the cushion. The aliveness of feet, toes. legs, the aliveness of the back, the aliveness of the body where clothing touches it. The aliveness of the face, the eyes. Perhaps the breath coming and going at the nostrils. There's a very distinct dichotomy between being lost in the trance, past, future, conversations, opinions, moods, emotions, and being awake to them. We tend not to notice the falling into trance, but the waking up is really quite distinct. So let us sit quietly together for a while, home with the breath and the body, absolutely non-violent, non-coercive. Watching as awakening happens. let us notice with non-judgment what's happening now. Is this a mind which is easily concentrated and content? Or is there some toil? Is there some problem solving? Is there some need to get somewhere, to get rid of something, to acquire something? Is the mind restless and agitated or worried? Is it sleepy and dull, sloth and torpor? Is it perhaps very, very content and quiet? Or is there doubt happening? Some need to be vigilant. No matter how it is, we discover our capacity to allow it to be exactly as it is. And so it is that we inhabit now, just now, every single one of us wants to be safe and content and loved and loving. Actually, the Sufis from Hazrat Inayat Khan have a beautiful understanding, which is that there really is only one desire, and the desire is to go home. The desire is to remember ourselves before our separateness. Theistically, we would say the desire is to become one with God. The Buddhist vocabulary, we might say that it's to remember our true nature. And our true nature includes exactly what's happening here. How could it not? And so to love ourselves means, quite simply, to be awake to what's happening now. Non-judgmentally, non-coercively. I aspire to love and accept this that I take to be me in this moment. And of course, we're very sensitive. We're nothing but sensitivity, really. We have these sense doors, the eyes and the ears and the nose and the tongue, the feeling body and mind. And of course, life unfolds in ways that are not quite exactly like we'd like. So there's dukkha, there's unsatisfactoriness. And another beautiful aspiration is when I'm hurting, no matter how I'm hurting, physically, emotionally, existentially, I intend to hold myself in sweet compassion. I intend to feel what's happening, to feel the grief when it's here, to feel the joy when it's here, to feel the hunger, to feel the loneliness, to feel the communion, to feel anxiety when it's here and lack of anxiety when that's here. And in so doing, I aspire to hold the pain and fear and loneliness of my loved ones just the same. The students in my classes at school, the people I meet as clients or customers. It's a noble thing, isn't it, I aspire to be sensitive to the world. And this is why we create community like this and practice. So in the safety of this moment, we can actually open and open and open. May all beings share in the peaceful, beautiful merits of our practice. all beings. There are hundreds of thousands of villages and cities around the world. It's too many to imagine. But what we can imagine is that every person there, no matter what their language, sexual preferences, social status, they all want the same thing. May all beings share in the merits of this practice. And please now, bringing awareness into the life of your hands. Your hands. Interesting delusion. They're on loan, perhaps. Bringing awareness into the face, that which you take to be your face. Not an image, the actual life of the face. And notice the life of the eyes. And then in mind, the intention to open the eyes. And then doing what it takes, operationalizing eye opening. And then in that opening, there's seeing. There's the fact of seeing, and then there's the contents of seeing. And then there's the familiarity, if your vision is good enough. Through the Zoom porthole into these other homes. It's as though there was no separation, no time. Take a moment to notice your colleagues on this journey, your Sangha mates. I have something I'm going to share with you that's the most, the most lovely thing I encountered in 2 weeks of a lot of loveliness in Costa Rica. And it goes like this. I hope it'll work. Kat, will you tell me if it doesn't? Share. Have we got a...
You indeed.
Is that working? Let me know. Oh, maybe I'm not plugged in. I'm not plugged in. Just a second here. I can't hear. There. Maybe I'm now plugged in. Maybe it's not working. Headphones. Hello?
There is an image of a sloth.
Okay, here we go.
And
that was... You can't click the wrong button. It doesn't work. Okay. Funny. Here we go. Jennifer and I spent 5 days in the little town of Cahuita. Just north of there is a sloth rehab and recovery place. This little sloth is named Valerie. Her mother was killed somehow, and she lives here. I forget the name of this one. Different type. They're both two-toed sloths. There's three-toed kind as well. Look at those abs. Seeing. And so it goes on. I can't remember. Oh, I need to change something here for the people on YouTube. Ooh, is this going to work? Yeah, it looks like it is. There we go.
The audio's still coming through, Robert.
My audio or the audio of the video? Okay, let me stop it. There we go. Thank you. Huh. There's a lot more things I can share with you from visually from the trip, but I started out today with the only game in town is love, and I'm bad at remembering details, but the story of this sloth sanctuary is a story of human beings seeing suffering, one human being seeing suffering. And there's now, I think, 150 or more sloths that are living out their lives safely here. And all around the world, we do that. We create refuge for each other. And we also encircle other nations with military and threaten each other. And we're quite capable of the whole gamut of human experience. But the significant events of my journey were in several meetings. And the kindness. The Costa Rican people are actually very kind in general. So I had many, many hours to do nothing. And 3 of the places we stayed, 3 of 6, I guess, had hammocks, which I made really good use of. I'd wake up around 4:30, which is not uncommon, and spend an hour or 2 just being in the hammock. And a kind of clarity came in. Not unfamiliar, but a kind of clarity that doesn't happen when I'm being my crazed, responsible, overdoing self. And there's one insight that I'd like to share, and I don't know, I tried yesterday, Sunday morning, I feel significantly, the mind is just dropping into quiet so much, it's hard even to find words. But here goes. I cannot expect to be deeply open and spacious if I'm over-amping my system. I've been meditating a long time, 51 years. However, I am part of the world I'm in. And if I am overamping, then I can take an hour or even 2 hours. And there's a lot of skill sort of developed, and I can drop into much more open spaces than I used to. But I'm still overamped, and it's at the physiological level. So I have come home. What a strange thing. To wake up at 4:30 in the morning in San Jose, Costa Rica, to pack up with a groggy mind and go to the airport and climb into an aluminum tube, and then suddenly 5 hours later to be in LA, and then to walk 500 miles in LAX, and then get in another tube and suddenly be here in Portland. It is so utterly weird. And the Big Dipper has shifted from way up there to high in the sky. Very odd latitude experience. But I come home with an intention to be more careful to rest more and to do I've done it, I've been good, to do half an hour of yoga every morning first thing. Now that's good. I have this avoidance. It's like, oh God, I'll do it later. Why? It's fine to do. So I have yet to open my email, and I have yet to contact in on the PIMC building project, but I will today. I let that stuff go like a hot potato. It was amazing. And it was, I must confess, it wasn't just, oh, I let it go. It was, yuck. So I hope I can pick it up skillfully. So, what's up with you? Oh, I want to thank Jim and Doug and Greg and Candle and Gary for keeping the fires burning while I was gone. Isn't it wonderful to discover what good teachers they are and how different their personalities are? Just like all of us, different and the same. So, what have you on your heart that you'd like to share?
Good morning, Robert. Good morning, Sangha. It's Jessica.
Hello, Jessica.
Hi. When you were talking about just now the spaciousness and not being overamped, and it reminded me that one of the big things that I recognized this morning that's been in the back of my mind, and I haven't been quite able to tease out what was causing some anxiety in my shoulder. And I just was trying to be with it and trying to figure it out. And I think weirdly in a way, but what I really discovered in this morning's sit, I think, is that our youngest son is coming home for a week tomorrow night, which is fantastic. He hasn't been home since December 2019. So
wow.
We've seen him, but having him come home is a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
And I think what's curious about it is that there's a part of me that wants to go tell him and tell many others how great this practice is and how much it's given me. And, oh boy, you need to do this. And maybe he'll sit with us in the morning. And I just all of a sudden came to that insight again for me, which is, oh, wait a minute, don't tell, just show. And it used to be counsel we give to students that were writing their college apps, and they were trying to do their essays, their persuasive essays. And one of the things we would counsel them is try not to just tell, like I'm this or I'm that, or this happened or that happened, but try to show by way of being in an active voice in writing. And so I thought, okay, how do I actively show that this practice has helped me so much? And anyway, so I'm just kind of happily, though, thinking about that. And it did cause the shoulder to relax some. And I go back to also that one time, several times, you've said to us, you're allowed to say once to someone. Once, you can have like one really good woo, and then shh. So that's in the front right now. And it's just interesting, though, at least to have found that discovery about what was kind of grabbing at the shoulder. And it's a good thing. So anyways, when you said just now about spaciousness and that kind of discovery, for some reason that really resonated in terms of what I was dealing with too. So thank you.
Hooray.
And welcome home.
And I have my other self-serving advice, which is you can also give them my book. And suggest they read the first chapter, which is short.
Actually, we did when it first came out, but that's a great reminder because I can pull it out and say, hey, did you get a chance? Okay, that might be pushing the one statement thing.
It could. Well, once a year. Yeah, that's fun. Imagine your son is coming home. Being a parent is such a ridiculous undertaking. They grow up and they get lives of their own, and then they won't answer your texts. Of course, I went to Australia, which was a little challenging for my parents.
Hi, Robert. Welcome back.
It's Dave Mayer. Hello.
I just had this tremendous wash of, I guess, empathy with Jessica, because the next step in that is part of the joy of our own discovery is wanting to share. If with my sons, it would to just share this experience, to explore it together and to revel in the wonders of it, which it's great if they're interested or willing, and if they're not, which I think this happened while you were gone. We were having this one moment where somebody, forgive me, I can't remember who it was getting deeply into how to integrate the ticking of a clock into their practice. And I suddenly had this great similar wash. Here is this group of 30 people, I think it was 30 at the time, sharing this experience of integrating the ticking of a clock into your practice, and what's the significance, and how the hell am I going to share that experience with my sons without them just laughing at me? And that's how wonderful this Sangha is, because we can share this experience, even if I can't necessarily share it with my sons, or Jessica can't share it, or maybe you can, I don't know, but that put some pieces together for me.
Thanks, David. I was, this mind spontaneously came up with Gibran's, your children are not your children. They are the fruits of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but they are not of you. And so on. He carried that manuscript on his person for more than 25 years. That's The Prophet, if you've not come across it. We've all heard it at weddings, but...
That was my parenting Bible. It got me through so much.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Good morning, Sangha.
Hello.
This is Cody.
Hello, Cody.
I have a quick question, and it's regarding some vocabulary around the difference or similarities between suffering and another guru that I follow calls it contrast. and just thinking a lot about that. And I was wondering if
In that other vocabulary, what causes contrast? Or what does one do with contrast?
my understanding is that contrast is necessary. That's the way she puts it.
Well, it certainly is. I mean, it exists. There is dukkha. It's the first noble truth. I'm not sure what else to say. Let me say this, though. If that other vocabulary really helps point toward what's true, having two vocabularies is really helpful. Like I was raised Catholic. I didn't get the full dose, but I got a pretty big dose, young. And after I met a Catholic priest who was a mystic and who understood Catholicism, and I was able to reclaim the utter profound teachings in Catholicism, it made Buddhism make much more sense, because I had two fingers pointing at the moon, at the truth, rather than just one. So I hope that other tradition can really support you.
Yeah, I was raised Catholic as well.
Ah, Dominus Vobiscum. You're probably too young for Latin, though.
I'm your son's age, I believe.
Uh-huh. Too young for Latin. You missed the good stuff. The good thing about Latin was you couldn't understand it. I couldn't. So it was like a mantra. It was confusing as hell. In fact, in the missal, the book that you use it in church, I never got this till much later in my life. You read along and it says, "And God bless N our Pope and N our Bishop." N means N means you're supposed to put in the name. I never knew that. I thought it was just N our Pope and N our Bishop. It was like a magic incantation. Funny. So Cody, go for it. I hope that really nourishes you.
Does it have, does Catholicism have a vocabulary for this idea of dukkha?
There's this guy that died on the cross. I
don't know if that's exactly the same, but I see where you're going with this.
Well, let me tell you how I made sense of it. I was Catholic, and then in my teens that fell away, and I became really a Taoist. Nature, mountaineering, skiing. I worshipped in the Church of the Great Blue Dome. And then I ran into Buddhism. Oh, and a little bit of a Taoist slant. But then I ran into Buddhism, and I took it deep. And so I was really into Buddhism for about 8 or 9 or 10 years. And then I went on this sesshin with Robert Aitken Roshi, Zen master, and Father Bernard McVeigh of the local Trappist Abbey. And there I learned of the Catholic mystics, Henri de Caussade and Saint Teresa of Avila, and there's many of them. Of course, the problem with them was that they had their experiences and then they were killed because they threatened the church rather badly. However, they did leave some powerful teachings, which I'd never heard of. But the moment I want to share with you was the first afternoon, actually, of the retreat. We started in the evening. The first afternoon at 5 o'clock, we had Mass, Catholic Mass, and it was in the church, the Mary Knoll Sisters convent up in Tacoma. And I walked into the church, and I looked up toward the altar, and there was the Jesus of my childhood. The Jesus there came off the same production line. It was the same. It had the crown of thorns and the blood on the face and the stab wound in the side and the blood there. And it was the same guy. And however, I feel teary as I talk about this. As I walked in and I saw it. By then, I had 8 or 9 or 10 years of Buddhism, and I fell to my knees sobbing. And this translation occurred, which was, take on a human birth, and the only way out of here is death. And it's rough. It's a crucifixion. And I realized also in that flash, in that moment, Siddhartha Gautama went and sat down under that tree, and he said, I am going to sit here till I awaken. And something happened to him, and Siddhartha ended, and the Buddha began. Siddhartha died under that tree. And the same thing happened with, Jesus, the guy, turned into the Christ. And then they both persisted, which was the surmounting death. It's the same story. The Catholic one is rather tortured and difficult, I think, for me anyway, to make sense of. But the two of them they're both pointing at the same experience. And of course, what happens, which is true in all traditions, there's this living truth that's at the beginning of the tradition, and then human beings contort it all into smithereens. And that's happened with Buddhism too. There's lots of Buddhism that really isn't what the Buddha taught. It doesn't resemble what the Buddha taught at all. But that's normal for religious traditions. So thanks for your sharing, Cody.
I'm hearing it's metaphorical in a sense, the death. And I have one last question. Sorry to take up so much time.
No,
is there a negativity?
Hold on
pattern?
to that. Hold on to that apology. You didn't need to apologize. You belong here.
Mike, this question is, after you answered that, I started thinking, is there a negative pattern? So negative thinking patterns can be a problem. Is this related in any way to the ending of those patterns of negative thinking?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Becoming aware of self-hatred is the end of self-hatred. Becoming aware of seeing depression as it is the end of depression. It's the end of identification with depression, anyway. Yeah. We have a lot of constricted, little tiny views of the world, and why would we not? Because we've been through so much trauma. Well, it's 10 after 8. Anything anybody else would like to share before we... There's Mish. Hello, Mish.
I'll share a quick thing on the topic. This beautiful, beautiful book, the Book of Joy, is a conversation between the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. So the topic is joy, but of course they cover many topics to talk about that, and their different places of coming from, and where they're the same and where they're different. It's just fantastic. If anyone's looking for a good read, and it's good on the topic you guys are just talking about too.
Yeah, wow. Thank you. So, anybody else? And then we'll go.
Robert,
I hear
my
Jim.
background in Catholicism also included the Jesuits, and they made me translate all that Latin stuff. And the very first exchange between the priest and the altar boy is intro ibo ad altare Dei adeum qui laetificat juventutem meam. And I had to memorize that when I was 12, and still there. But what it says is, we enter the altar of the God who gave birth to my joy, or gave joy to my youth, is really what it says. And when I went from the Catholic Church to the Taoist stuff up in the mountains, every time I would start an ascent, I would bow ad altare Dei, bow to the altar of God that I was entering, and then I go off into the trail and up into the ice fields and the bristlecone pine and all the rest of the stuff I did. But that crazy entrance stayed in my consciousness because of the Jesuits, so I always remember them with fondness.
Would you say again, with no hurry, that Latin incantation,
Okay,
please?
it's intro ibo. I will go intro ibo ad altare Dei, ad Deum qui laetificat juventutem meam. To God who gives joy to my youth.
Well, that's long over. I want joy in my old age.
But,
All right.
But the priest is remembering it and sharing it with the altar boy.
Ah, got it.
He's the elder.
Cool. Thank you. Well, let's chant our little chant. May all beings receive all blessings. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Welcome back, Robert.
Glad to be here. When do you leave, B?
Friday.
Friday. Oh, boy.
I will send reports. Yeah.
All right. Have a wonderful time.
Thank you.
Such a joy to be with everybody in these mornings. Thank you all. Welcome back, Robert.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for all coming over.
Pura vida.
Be
Pura vida.
Hey, Catherine.
I had.
Thank you, Robert. Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Thanks,
Bye,
Tamara.
Tamara.
Bye. Bye, all.
Hello, Lauren and
Bye.
Billy. And Lilith. Hello.
Hello.
Well, off we go. I am
day.
determined not to become frantic, but I have things to do.
Are you off yet?
I'm ready. Here we go. You ready to leap to hyperspace? Whoosh. All right, friends.